bed fishing with a swim bait on a Tokyo rig, dude, is unbelievable. It's really a tip that I hate to share too much because of just how effective that it is, because it is the absolute medicine on it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the garage. Going through another soft plastic rigging technique. This one is something that's definitely newer for me. I have found some applications for it where I use it a lot, and I have a lot of applications where I'm still not using it that much. But those places where it shines for me, man, it really stands out like nothing else. So jumping into it right here, a Tokyo rig. I don't know how many of y'all out there have fished this yet. It may be something that's always in your arsenal. It may be something you've never heard of, but a Tokyo rig is something that, to me, I learned about, honestly, maybe just a couple years ago, 2017, 18 at the earliest was when I had started hearing about that, but really 2019 when VMC, somewhere in there, 2018 or 19, when they really started coming out with it, was the first I had heard of it or knew anything about it. So basically what it is, you know, what a Tokyo rig is, I'll hold this one up here. You've got a hook, and with VMC now we've got multiple style hooks, but this one is the heavy duty wide gap. We've got a heavy duty worm, we've got a heavy duty flipping, but this one's the heavy duty wide gap. So you've got your hook, you've got a welded ring there, you've got a swivel, which is what you're going to tie to, and then you've got a drop leader. Okay, so that wire drop leader, I think this one's had a little bit cut off of it, but that wire drop leader runs down, and then that's where you actually put your weight. So your weight goes below your bait. The very first thing looking at it, you're going to be like, well, it's kind of like a fixed drop shot. Basically, that's pretty close to what it is. Okay, you've got that wire leader that is holding your weight, and so you're going to have a very similar presentation to a drop shot with just a small, short, fixed leader. That's kind of what that deal is how that's going to end up, you know, looking in the water to those bass that you're going to be fishing for. So that's how the deal sets up. But that little swivel that's loose, that is where you tie to. Okay, that top loop of that swivel, that's where you're actually going to tie your line to. So then when it's out there on the bottom, you know, that weight's going to sit on the bottom, and you can drag it along. You can reel it really at a slow, steady speed. You know, there's a lot of different things that you can do with this once it's actually out there in the water. That is one thing that's pretty unique with it. With the weight being on the bottom like it is, you're actually able to use less weight for this presentation than you would a likewise one. Like if you were, you know, flipping a Texas rig in pretty heavy cover, this thing will actually go through it really well. You know, I think of like flipping heavy grass. I did that some with the Tokyo rig on a Hunt for Monster Bass show down in Louisiana. Caught a lot of fish with it, and I was able to get through stuff that I would have needed an ounce or maybe 1.25 ounces to punch through with like a 1/2 or 3/4 ounce on a Tokyo rig. So able to use a little less weight. And then once it gets through there, again, a little bit different presentation than just your standard Texas rig. Another thing that this is really effective with is that method where you're using a lot of creature style bait, something like a Bass Pro Bull Hog, something that's kind of a crawdad imitating style bait, where you throw it out, you let it go to the bottom, you know, whether you're fishing points or drop-offs or whatever, but throw it out, let it go to the bottom, and then you kind of just slow, steady retrieve, that bottom bugging style technique. Where if you're using a jig head, you know, to where your weight's on the head of this, it takes a little bit more weight to keep this thing on the bottom, you know, in 12 or 15 feet of water. With that jig head being on the front of it, you're going to need a 3/4 minimum, okay, to be able to do that. Where with the Tokyo rig, you can probably do it with a 1/2. I don't completely understand the physics of that and why it works that way. I just know that it does. Okay, so now a few different rigging methods with it. For one, I mentioned flipping it in heavy grass. Okay, that one is a football style weight. That's not what you want to use in grass. This is a great one for fishing around rock, for fishing around gravel, that type of stuff. If that's what you're fishing, that football head is less likely to get stuck in between those than say a bullet weight. So that football shaped tungsten weight is going to be the one that I pick in those situations. If I am fishing very heavy grass, you know, like I'm punching it in and out of mats all the time, I'm going to take 2 bullet weights and then I'm going to put them on there opposing direction. So I'm gonna take one bullet weight and put it on, you know, with the narrow end up, and then I'm gonna take the other one and reverse it to it. So now you've got a smooth system whether it's going in or back out of that grass. And that makes it really, really weedless. It slides in and out of cover extremely well. That is a setup that I use when I'm fishing like that. Now, if I'm just flipping it around wood and around cover, you know, hard type cover, I'll rig it that way sometimes, because there's times where I like to have two weights that, you know, may click against each other, make a little bit of noise. And you can actually even put a bead. I've got one rigged that way. You can put a bead in between those two. If you really want to make a lot of noise, the water's really muddy or something, that's a way you can do that as well. And then you can really shake your rod tip and generate more noise that way. A little side tip there, if that's what you're wanting to do, make your top weight lighter than your bottom weight. That way it'll be more likely to bounce up a little bit easier and click against that bead. So that's just kind of a little tip there if that's something that you're wanting to do. But yeah, for heavy cover, that hands down is the way to fish it. Typically, if I'm just around hard cover, I'm just gonna run one weight and I'm gonna rig it that direction to where the weight, the flat part of the weight will sit down on the bottom and then the narrow part sticking up so that it's easier to get, you know, back out of the cover that I flipped it into. And when it falls, most times it actually falls kind of like that, I feel like anyway. I feel like your bait or your weight may be down here like that, but either way it's falling like this, and then once you pull on it, it kind of sits up on the bottom in that manner, something like that. So just to keep that in mind, I think that that's how it falls most of the time, is that weight actually slides up, you know, and then it all kind of goes through there together. So just a little idea there. But yeah, that's how, you know, that's what a Tokyo rig is. That's a few applications. The one that I have personally seen it shine most for me on the Bass Pro Tour is actually fishing it with a swim bait, which is something that I didn't think of to start with. I didn't think that would be a good presentation for a swim bait, but once I got out there and started fishing it with a swim bait, and I've done a bed fishing video with this, and that's where I've really seen it shine. Bed fishing with a swim bait on a Tokyo rig. Dude, is unbelievable. It's really a tip that I hate to share too much because of just how effective that it is, because it is the absolute medicine on them. When those fish see that thing, you flip it into their bed and that bait is hovering above the bottom a little bit, or you've got a little bit of angle in your line, so it's only an inch or 2 inches off the bottom, kind of sitting in that posture. Dude, those bass cannot stand it and they will just unload on it. So it is a very, very good way to do that. We've done did a bed fishing video and did a lot of underwater and got to see some really cool strikes on that swim bait from that underwater perspective from those fish, you know, that were on a bed. So Tokyo rig is very, very effective, whether you're rigging up a swim bait on it, a creature bait on it, straight tail worm on it. We've got from VMC, we've got a hook that'll match it up to fit any of those presentations, as well as all the weights that you need to go with it. So yeah, it is a technique that has really come a long way really quickly and has so many applications that there's a bunch of them I don't even know yet. So hopefully this will help you out. Hope you catch more bass next time you're out on the water.